Medical Examiner announcing another positive identification of a person killed in the 9/11 attacks all these many years later. Aaron Katersky following the story. Good morning, Aaron.
Well, good morning, McGraw. The latest human remains to be positively identified belong to a man who died at the World Trade Center. His family did not want his name released, but he's the first positive identification made since March of 2015. So the positive matches are fewer and farther between now, but they're still trying. And the medical examiner's office here committed back in 2001 to do this work, and they're still doing it 16 years later, trying to test all of these tiny fragments of human remains that were recovered from ground zero.
Take us through this. How did this work? Did they find these remains recently? Have they been on a shelf somewhere? What happened?
No, these are all remains that had previously been recovered. They stopped, the dig a number of years ago. But the tiny fragments, and really, McGraw, not to be too graphic about it, but you're talking about very, very small bits, have all been placed in a repository inside the 9/11 museum that's adjacent to this reflecting space, only accessible by 9/11 families. And periodically, as DNA technology improves, they'll cycle the remains through the testing process. And there's still full-time scientists committed to this work and trying to positively identify the 40% of World Trade Center victims who still haven't been positively identified all these years later.
Yeah, that's remarkable. Over 1,000 people still have not been identified from 9/11.
And it gives you a sense of the I think intensity of the damage, the sheer force of what the airplanes did, and then when the buildings came down, and that's been, I think, one of the again, you don't want to get too graphic about it, but they recovered some bodies, but more often they recovered just bits, and they had to sift through debris to get to these bits of suspected human remains. And years have gone by where negative test results have come back, but DNA technology has really evolved in the last 16 years, in many cases because of 9/11 and the forensic work that was started here in New York, and so they're to the point where they can get these matches. But again, it's been 2 years since the last one until we got word yesterday.
So can we assume that it's going to be a slow process, or is it going to speed up because of all this new technology?
No, I think it's still going to be really slow. I mean, you're talking about very, very small samples that they have to work with. So the technology is sensitive, and occasionally they can get a match, and the hope is that they'll keep at it, and the technology will allow for smaller and smaller samples to yield a positive result. So they think they'll get more, but they may not get all of them.
Yeah. What do we know anything about the man or the family?
No, the family declined to say anything publicly or even identify who the man was. The last one that was identified back in March of 2015 was a 26-year-old guy. He worked, I think, on one of the upper floors, in the 90s on the World Trade Center, and died with more than 2,700 others.
Yeah. Aaron Katersky, ABC News correspondent. Aaron, thanks for the phone call.
Thanks, McGraw.
6:54, Big 550 KT.